And good morning and welcome to the Q2 Rare Foundation Alliance call. We have several new exciting things to share with you and a special presentation as well. So we are excited that you all could join. My name is Lauda Sprocket and I will be the one leading this call with several other Global Genes and external members as well. If you have any questions regarding the Foundation Alliance, please jot down my email address that's right there. As the one who's coordinating the Rare Foundation Alliance, I'm always looking for insight, and so I look forward to further connecting with you. So as I mentioned, we have a really loaded agenda today. I'll be starting out with a brief overview about Global Genes, and then I will introduce you to the fantastic Melissa Bryce Gamble, and then she will be leading our call and introducing several other people along the way so you can learn about what's going on at Global Genes, and then also learn from Michelle Turenne, who's doing a special presentation. So we always like to start out our webinars with a little bit of foundation about who Global Genes is, and our mission is to connect, empower, and inspire the rare disease community, and we hope to do so by equipping everyone with the resources to do so to eliminate the challenges of rare disease. So like I said, we want to connect everybody, and we do so through our impact and the hope that we have for the rare disease community. And I'd now like to introduce our moderator for this Foundation Alliance call. Melissa Bryce Gamble is the Executive Director and co-founder of the Global Foundation for Peroxisomal Disorders. So with lots of pleasure, I introduce Melissa.
Thank you, Lauda. It's so nice to be here today, and I'm so excited to share with the Foundation Alliance members everything that's going on at Global Genes. So with that, we'll get going. Oops, wrong way. All right, so the Foundation Alliance is always hoping to have updated information from our members. So please, if you have new information, new board members, new email, new phone number, please get in touch with Lauda. Her email is listed there. And also make sure that you have the new 2019 Foundation Alliance member badge proudly displayed on your website. I know our organization needs to update ours on our website, so but this is a new member badge, and we definitely want everyone out there that's visiting your website to know that you're part of the Global Genes Foundation Alliance as well. So I'm really happy to let you know that I think we have almost all of our Foundation Alliance Leadership Council members on this call today, and it's been such a pleasure getting to know these other 9 leaders and just learning about their organizations. And our goal as the Foundation Alliance is really just to be sort of the boots on the ground in the rare disease space in terms of patient advocacy groups. So we are here to help provide insight to Global Genes about relevant current issues impacting patient advocacy organizations, and also to be a resource to you, Foundation Alliance members, as you are growing your organizations. And if you have questions, any of these Foundation Alliance Leadership Council members would be happy to talk with you. We're really excited about what we have planned for this year. So more of that to come in the coming slides. So we do have some new members this quarter, and we are up to 583 Foundation Alliance members, which is just incredible, and really speaks to the awesome outreach that Global Genes is doing. So with that, I would like to say thanks to all of our new members, and that we're very excited that you're with us, and we look forward to all working together. So now I am going to introduce Molly and Kanoy from the Global Genes staff. They are going to share with you some information about upcoming Global Genes events. So Molly, Kanoy, take it away.
Good morning. This is Molly McLaughlin, and I'm here with Kanoy Fragus. So we have just a couple updates for you about upcoming events, and also wanted to just say thank you to everybody who attended the symposium last week in Philadelphia. We had an incredible turnout. We had poster presentations and exhibitors this year, and overall we got some great feedback, and we hope that if you attended that you had a great time. So our Rare Patient Advocacy Summit is coming up in September. It's just right around the corner. So just wanted to remind everybody that the price does increase July 31st. So if you do want to take advantage of the discount, please make sure you register before the 31st. The second reminder is to also book your hotel room. Even if you haven't registered, or if you're waiting on a travel scholarship, or you're just waiting on some arrangements, I would recommend booking your hotel room. We only have limited rooms at our discounted rate, and once they're out, we aren't able to get additional rooms. So just want to make sure that everybody is taken care of for their hotels. We're at a beautiful new hotel down in San Diego, right on the bay, and we're really looking forward to being at the new hotel. And lastly, in regards to the summit, we wanted to extend the invitation for all of our Foundation Alliance members to have the opportunity to exhibit in our new exhibit pavilion. So we have the potential to have over 70 exhibit booths there. We're going to open the summit with a reception in our exhibit hall, and there's a lot of networking opportunities and a lot of time built into the schedule to interact with the exhibitors. Just a great opportunity to connect with other stakeholders and get the word out about your organization, meet other people, talk about best practices between organizations. So if you do have any questions about exhibiting, please reach out to us in the events inbox at events@globalgenes.org. There's still a lot of booths available, and it is filling up. And if you also had any recommendations or people that you've seen at other conferences that you would like us to reach out to, we're happy to do that as well. We want to make sure that the exhibit hall is things that you want to see and people that you want to talk to. So if you do have any recommendations, please also go ahead and send those to the events inbox. And these are a couple ways that you guys can get more involved in the summit this year. Last year, we had our first freshman orientation that we are going to continue doing. So the freshman orientation is on Wednesday. So anybody that it's their first time coming to the summit, or you came last year and just want to get a better understanding of the agenda, how to use the conference app and things like that, the freshman orientation is a great place to do that. And if you have been going to our summit for many years and you feel like you want to help our freshmen, there is an advisor program, and there have been a lot of people that showed interest in having an advisor. And your role is basically to just be there for the new attendees, to help answer any questions, to have a buddy to go network with. And it's a really great program that Laura is putting together. So if you have any questions, please reach out to her if you'd like to become an advisor. And then we also have our Rare Champion of Hope celebration on Friday night, which is very exciting. We'll have a reception before, and then that's followed by dinner. And if you're also interested in being a room host and helping us out and volunteering that way, we would really appreciate it. And Ashley will oversee all of that. So if you are able to help or have any questions about it, please reach out to Ashley. And then finally, if you are interested in submitting a poster abstract, the submissions are now open until June 14th. So if you have any questions, again, you could reach out to Ashley or Laura or the events inbox about the posters, but we're really excited to grow that program this year as well. Then we also have our Rare Entrepreneur Bootcamp that is happening on Wednesday as well. And this particular event, if you can answer these three questions: are you actively funding rare disease research? Do you have a plan to take the research to therapeutic discovery and development? and are considering creating a company or funding a company as a venture philanthropic effort to begin the therapeutic development process. So if you can say yes to those questions, we do want you to apply. There's a link to apply for the application. It's also on our website. And we do require that you are attending this summit to attend this event. It's on Wednesday. It doesn't conflict with any of the major events for the summit, so it's going to be very streamlined. If you have any questions, please reach out to reb@globalgenes.org to find out some more information, or go ahead and just submit your application, and we will be following up with you and letting you know if you've been approved or recommendations on what you can do to be approved for the next boot camp. And now I'm going to turn it over to Knoy Fragus. She's going to talk about the Data DIY meeting.
All right, hi there, everyone. So we have our Data DIY workshop number 2, Data Trust Governance and Collection Platforms, coming up on July 17th through the 19th in Washington, D.C. at the Washington Marriott Georgetown. This is a must-attend event for key foundation leaderships, including board members and scientific advisors, to receive hands-on mentorship to understand our responsibilities as data stewards and the processes used to protect patients' rights. It's also a chance to help develop a plan for governance that prescribes how participants will be recruited, how data will be accessed, who makes decisions on data sharing, and what will be done to keep data secure, and also how to access and compare platform options and form equitable partnership agreements. So it's a really great workshop. And then also on Friday, we will be doing a private expert mentorship from Sage BioNetworks to help specifically address your specific data strategy questions. So this is a really great opportunity to get some answers for any questions you may have about data from some experts. So registration is open for this event, and we do have travel scholarships available for all patients and patient advocates who register. We will also be live streaming these events as well, so just be on the lookout on our website for that registration link a little later on. Yeah, we hope to see you all there.
Awesome. Thank you, Molly and Knoy, for those updates from Global Genes. I'm really excited about all the events that you all have coming up. So I would like to personally invite everyone in the Foundation Alliance to join us at the Foundation Alliance in-person meeting, which will be on Saturday, September 21st from 8:30 a.m. to noon Pacific time. And this will actually be our third quarter meeting. So it's going to be an in-person meeting, and we have so many wonderful things planned for this in-person meeting. The Foundation Alliance Leadership Council worked together to come up with some topics for roundtable discussions, and we're just really excited. We think these are things that every patient advocacy group can benefit from, no matter where you are in your organization's development. So we would love to invite you to join us. You will be receiving information on registration and an invitation via email in the next month or so. So we'll look forward to hopefully seeing many of you there. So now I'd like to introduce Ashley Yee from Global Genes. She'll be telling us about Global Genes' current educational programs.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Melissa, for the introduction. Again, my name is Ashley Yee. I'm the Director of Patient Education, and I'll just be going through some of our updates. But again, mine will be pretty quick. You can see a lot of our updates on our programs on our website. So I first like to welcome two of our new members to the patient engagement team. So the first is Jane Nicholson. She's our program assistant for patient engagement. She'll be supporting a lot of the education programs. So you may see some emails coming from her. So, don't be alarmed. She's just one of our new staff members. And so, definitely if you see her at our summit, if you will be attending, make sure you say high and welcome her into this really wonderful community. And also for the summer, we'll be having our tech pharmacy graduate intern, Anjali Law. And over the next year or so, we'll also be introducing throughout these calls new interns that we'll be having as we've been developing our internship program. So we're really excited to have her join our team for the summer and some of the great work that she's doing to help us prepare more of our educational programs in the back end. So for those of you who maybe don't know, we have our Rare Compassion Project. This is formerly the David R. Cox program. So this is a program where we match medical students with patient advocates or patient families. We are matching throughout the year. Again, with some of the expansion of our staff, we are lucky to be able to now offer this matching program year-round with a round of scholarships in the spring for the medical students. So we're really excited. If you're interested in participating or you think your community may be interested in participating, we're always looking for new patients in all the states, as well as Canada and the UK, to participate in this program. So we encourage you all to share this with your communities. This link is going to be provided in the PDF for the patient form, but you can always find this again on our website under the Rare Compassion Project. So I think many of you all on this call joined me a couple weeks ago for our Rare Patient Impact Grant webinar, but if you haven't heard, we are opening our LOIs are currently open. They will be closing on July 3rd, but we are really excited to be able to expand our Patient Impact Grant this year. We've added a new category in capacity building to help stand up new or young communities. To learn more about our grant program, just check out our grant guidelines. You can also see the letter of intent submission form and our Q&A webinar. We're also hosting consultation and feedback, so if you are interested, sorry, the email isn't on here, but it's just raregrants@globalgenes.org. We'll be happy to have any phone calls with anyone interested in participating more in the program, looking to submit an LOI, wanting to talk about their proposals. So just go ahead and shoot us an email and we'll set up a call with you. If you haven't seen in the newsletters, we do have a webinar tomorrow. It is going to be on precision medicine. We'll be joined by Dawn Lanny, a genetic counselor, to talk about what precision medicine is, why it's important for your community, and how you can encourage your medical care team to engage in this type of approach. And we'll also be hearing from two doctors, Dr. Hopkin and Dr. Hofferlock, providing case studies on how they use precision medicine as an approach to two different rare disease communities. So there's still time to register. So again, this is on our website under the events tab, but you'll also get these slides as well. And so we do have the registration link available through there. And for those of us who've been joining us since a couple years ago, we've been talking a lot about our Rare University. We do have our drug development course currently online, but we're really, really excited to announce after what feels like several years, we are excited to announce the launch of our Genetics for Rare Disease Patients and Families course coming at the end of this month. We're really excited. This has been a really long process. We've had many of you from the Foundation Alliance also participate in our early focus groups to help us give guidance on how to develop the curriculum and how to develop the content. So we're really excited to be able to bring this to you all. So if you haven't signed up for Rare University, please do so. And especially if you are interested in this genetics course, look for it and in some of our announcements at the end of the month.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. I am really looking forward to seeing that content online. I know it's such a huge need in our community, and I'm just so grateful that you at Global Genes have put this together. And before I announce or introduce our next speaker, I just wanted to encourage those of you who have not applied for a Rare Patient Impact Grant to do so. I can tell you from personal experience that it has been one of the things that has really propelled our organization to the next level. It's challenged us to learn new things, try new things, and really just to grow our organization in ways that we, didn't think were possible at this stage in our life cycle. So thank you so much, Ashley, for those updates. So now I am excited to introduce you to Michelle Turin. She is the Chief of Corporate Alliances and Business Development at the American Thoracic Society. And she's going to be talking with us today about working with industry. I know many small patient advocacy organizations may have some hesitation in terms of working with industry partners, may not know exactly how is the best way to work in a collaborative fashion. So I'm excited to hear what Michelle has to say, and thank you so much, Michelle, for being here today.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on what part of the country you're in. And thank you so much for having me. I'd like to say thank you to Ginger Spitzer, who's a dear friend at the American Thoracic Society. She's the executive director for the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research, and she's on this group's leadership team. So thank you, Ginger, for recommending me as a speaker. I'm thrilled to talk to you guys today. In terms of disclosure and acknowledgement, I want to disclose I don't have any stock or financial interests in pharma, device, or biotech companies, and I am employed full-time by the ATS. We are a professional medical society focused specifically in pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine. I also serve as a board member on ITN America, which is a non-related organization that focuses on senior transportation solutions, especially in rural communities. But I did spend 17 years in pharma and biotech before I came to the American Thoracic Society almost 12 years ago. So we tend to have a somewhat unique relationship with our industry colleagues, and any of the information that I share or quotes that I share are from real people who are either patients or patient representatives like yourselves or folks in industry. So moving forward with that was my little arrow. I do want to put in a quick plug for our ATS Public Advisory Roundtable. This is a group of 15 patient interest organizations. Ginger serves as a member of that, as does Donna Appel from the Hermansky Pudlak Syndrome Network. I'll be talking about Donna in a little bit. But these patient groups actually serve as part of our structure. I staff the ATS Committee on Drug Device Discovery and Development, and Greg Porta, who at the Children's Interstitial Lung Disease Network, has served as a member of that committee for many years. And we really do have the patient voice all the way up to a seat on our board of directors as the chair of PAR, as we call it. Has a seat on the board of directors. If you are listening and you are in the pulmonary critical care or sleep medicine space, want to learn more about our Public Advisory Roundtable, I've put the link there below. Or you can email me. My email is at the end of the presentation, and I'd be happy to introduce you to Courtney White, a really, really exceptional man who is the face of the patient organizations within our society. So today, in the next 20-ish minutes, I'm going to cover a lot of ground very quickly, but information that I hope will be helpful to you. Industry is a little scary sometimes, and there's one really important consideration that you have to keep in mind when you work with industry, and we'll talk about that. We'll touch briefly on the rise of patient centricity, and that's in quotes because most people will call it patient engagement, but if you want to look in the published literature from industry about what they're doing, this is the term that they've adopted. Also some tactics to consider and some things to think about, because you should always have a plan before you talk to a pharmaceutical device or biotech company, and then hopefully some additional resources. And then I've got some time at the end, of course, to answer questions, but if you have them in the meantime, just go ahead. So where's the little arrow thing? There we go. So the most important word, and it's one word to remember when you're developing a concept or a proposal or an initial conversation with anyone in industry, is the word risk. It's probably not a surprise to you guys that the pharmaceutical, biotech, and device industries are among the most heavily regulated here in the United States and also abroad. There is a high sense of sensitivity to how companies in this space operate and how they work with patients, how they work with physicians, how they work with professional medical societies. There are more laws and codes and watchdogs that everyone who works in industry really has to consider. These are just a few of them, and they range from everything to the Wall Street Journal test, which means if it's not something you'd be comfortable with appearing on the Wall Street Journal front page. You probably shouldn't be doing it. To internal compliance lawyers. You see PhRMA there, the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers Association, and some of the global groups and internal and inside the U.S. laws that companies have to be considerate of. I've listed what all of these are for you. I'm not going to go through them now, but acronyms are a pain, and these are all codes and things that if you're going to interact with industry, you really should be aware of. Some of them are worthy of their own talk, and I'll touch on them briefly, but these are all things that you should be aware of, and if you don't, please look them up or send me an email for some more information. This is a quote from an actual pharmaceutical executive that I've spoken with, and it said it's really important for organizations, whether it's a medical society or patient organization, just because a company can't fund your event, it's not that they don't care or they're not interested in talking to you. It's that something about the proposal or the rules or where they are in the life cycle, important word, of the product that they're developing prohibits them from talking to you or funding something, depending on where they are in that process. Again, a very heavily regulated part of industry. So we'll touch briefly on the rise of patient centricity. And again, this is a word that you will find in the published literature. This slide and the next 3 slides are courtesy of Donna Appel, who many of you may know. She's the founder and CEO of the Hermansky-Pudlak Syndrome Network. HPS is a wretched lung disease that has to do with fibrosis and a genetic deficiency. She's a remarkable woman. If you don't know her, I suggest you reach out to her. Several years ago, AstraZeneca, which is a global pharmaceutical company, published a paper in patient centricity, and that's really where the term originated it. But most people, including medical societies and most patient organizations that I've spoken with, use the phrase patient engagement, or PE. So we'll be using that term moving forward. But again, if you're going to look in the published literature, patient centricity is an alternate word to be looking for. And there are 3 forces that have really driven this. I don't think any of these are a surprise to you who work with patients more closely than I. The emergence of consumerism and the plethora of information that's available on the websites. Most of it is not correct. I'm always telling my friends, please stay off, WebMD or whatever, because it's, go to a patient organization, go to something that ends in edu, go to a big medical center and look at the information that they have. There's a shift from volume to value. Volume of prescriptions and value of prescriptions, and factors like adherence to pharmaceutical regimens are extremely important. And also there's a huge regulatory interest in including, sorry for the typo, in including patient perspectives. The FDA, as I'm sure all of you know, have been holding disease-specific meetings and asking for patient perspectives on drug approval and drug development. There are keys to the sustained engagement for the patient, and these are from a publication from the British Medical Journal that talks about this specifically. They cite inclusiveness, sharing goals that are patient and family-centered, empowering patients to take control of their own health, working in a way that shows respect, compassion, and openness, and working in partnership. Again, this slide is courtesy of Donna, and I can share that industry really does try to adhere to these goals, but sometimes different things get in the way. And there are published principles from several companies on their interactions with patient interest organizations, or PIOs. They strive to hold them to high ethical standards. The nature of the involvement has to be clear. Companies are very nervous about being the sole funder of a patient organization. That gets back to risk, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Companies that provide financial support or in-kind, which means they give you equipment or drugs for a study, should have in place written documentation that includes specifically what those things are for. And they want to make sure that, activities professional and educational. It's not an hour on the ski slopes and then it's, an hour in the session room and then, an afternoon on the ski slopes. They want to make sure that venue is appropriate and meals are modest. And there's a lot of codes and rules behind that specific rule as well. There are a lot of barriers to patient engagement. The pharmaceutical industry routinely ranks in the lowest of industries that people trust. Some consumers just lack access and don't know where to start. Pharmaceutical websites are notoriously complex and hard to navigate. There are some compliance hurdles that mean that the companies aren't allowed to work with patients in specific areas, but those are changing and changing rapidly with the rise of patient engagement. Some think that they do a really good job. They don't, but they try. Some companies really, really do this well. And some are focused, unfortunately, on brand-specific products, websites, and programming, which has its place but can be very touchy from a compliance standpoint. And I've inserted a reference here for you in case you want to read the article that this information came from. Having said that, as patient organizations, you guys have a tremendous opportunity for impact. And I've listed a few of here that came to mind. I'm sure that there are many others. The biggest one that the companies that I talk to are interested in is trial design and having clinical endpoints that are meaningful for your patient population. It does, and I'm sorry that all of my references are probably going to be lung related, but if you increase a patient's lung function by 10 or 12%, that may not be statistically significant, but it may be completely significant. It may mean the difference between someone being able to get up in the middle of the night and get to the restroom by themselves, or do they have to live in an assisted facility because they can't make that trip. Companies are looking at trial design, and you have an opportunity to help them understand how to set those trials so that their populations are as inclusive as possible. If your entire patient group is on a particular medicine or on a particular course of treatment, and that's an exclusion criteria for studying a possible new drug for that disease state, you're not going to have a lot of luck with that trial because you've excluded most of your population. And a lot of pharmaceutical company executives may understand that, but you as patient advocates really have a unique opportunity to help them understand, what makes the trial design most inclusive so that trials can move forward and new solutions can get to patients more quickly, which candidly is everybody's goal. You can help by sharing news that companies send to you about new trials that are available for enrollment. I know many of you do this already. There are additional indications that companies could or possibly should be thinking about for existing compounds. That's a touchy one because it means that they have to do more trials, but it may be an additional business line or a patent extension, and they could be very interested in thinking about that. What I'm talking about is when compounds are used off-label for your particular rare diseases because there's nothing approved, it doesn't hurt to have a conversation with the company to suggest it as a particular line extension is the language that they will use. Can also provide patient speakers who are trained to educate people at companies who take on work in, and especially are preparing for launch in new compounds, really want the people who work at those companies to understand the patient's life, to understand what the disease state is and why it's so important to focus there. You can also have a tremendous impact speaking to the bench researchers. These are primarily PharmDs and PhDs who don't see patients every day. Many of the people who are on your medical advisory boards are MDs and seeing patients, and that's great. And some of them may also be bench researchers, but PhDs and PharmDs do a tremendous amount of bench research. That means basic research that helps move a compound forward. And they don't get to see patients every day. And if they do, they're very, very lucky. And finally, although I hate this phrase, the patient journey, you really have a unique opportunity to help companies understand the barriers to correct diagnosis. Having just been through this myself in the past 8 months, there's nothing more frustrating than continued misdiagnosis of something and finally getting to the correct diagnosis so that you can get patients appropriate treatment. Helping people understand that those barriers to diagnosis is a really important opportunity where you are uniquely positioned to contribute. So having said all of that, you have to have a plan before you talk to companies. And I've outlined a few tactics and a few things to think about. Some of these are related to funding. Some of these are related to scientific engagement. But regardless, the principles are the same. For an initial outreach, where do you start? And I know this may sound trite and basic, but the first place to look is the company website. And I've listed some places that may be obvious to look at, like their pipeline, what are the compounds that they have in development, but you might read their annual reports. You might read their press releases, especially around the big conferences that are in your particular area, which is where they release big news around big trials or starts of big trials that are about to begin enrollment. The other place to look is a transparency report, and large global companies do this. If you've not ever seen a transparency report, they are not easy to find. You need to go to the search function and type transparency report or corporate sponsorship. And the transparency report is a list that most major companies are required through the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers Association of disclosing where their educational grant and charitable grant support is going. So you can not only see if a company is funding other organizations that are like you or funding education in medical societies in your area of interest, but also what is the budget that they're contributing. So if you send a request to a company for $5,000, and you could have looked on their transparency report to see that they're funding most patient requests around $20,000 or $25,000, that might be a helpful piece of information. It's not intuitive, but I guarantee if you look at the transparency reports for the larger companies, you'll find some interesting things that they are interested in that you might not know they're interested in. The second step is to outline a plan, and you have to be very clear about what you want, whether it's access to scientific expertise, input into trial design, to talk to them about trials they're doing, what funding your educational or patient outreach programs or whatever. Be very clear about what you want, because those all are entry points into an organization that may be different. And the third thing you need to do is find an internal advocate. It's best if it's a patient advocacy person, but anybody who can get you to the right place in an organization is a really valuable person. In working with all of the companies that the ATS works with, we have about 250 companies we work with generally. Our exhibit floor is just under that number. For the main companies that we work with, we have not only an exhibit lead, but a scientific lead, an educational lead. And depending on what I need to talk to the company about is where I go. So I would recommend you find a patient advocacy representative. You can call a company's main number and ask to be transferred to that person or that department. And then if you send them an email, don't lay out your whole plan from step 2. Just say, I'd like to talk to somebody about trial design in this area. Don't go into specifics, because you may cross over into something that they're not able to talk to you about, and you could shut down your request as non-compliant. It's always best to have a general email and a specific conversation until you understand the firewalls and the concerns that industry people have to maintain when they talk to external people. And they'll help you, that main person will help you understand who to talk to, what their processes are, where to put specific requests, and candidly, any internal politics. And lastly, please note the last place to start, unless the product is already approved for your specific rare lung disease, is marketing. There's too much risk, there's too much firewalls between marketing and scientific engagement. So I really recommend you go there last. Then, since I work for a medical society, there are society resources that you should think about. Check out the staff list for your respective medical societies and see who leads the industry team. Not necessarily the exhibit lead who runs the exhibit floor, but the people who are having higher level conversations. I always love to talk to our patient organizations because I know information that I can share with them, And I can't tell you the number of times that they've said, hey, you need to talk to this company. They've got a compound in phase 2 or phase 3 development. And they know companies that I don't. So it's a really great exchange of information. And then you can ask your medical society, look at their exhibitor list, look at a pre-registration list, and see if they can help you set up a discussion. Donna Appel will tell you of a story where she needed to have a discussion with a pharmaceutical company that had just bought a compound that had been researched in her particular disease area, but she didn't know anybody at that company. And what I was able to do was contact my scientific lead and say, I have a patient group that wants to talk to you. I can't ask you to do anything except be at the meeting and listen to what they have to say. And luckily, the relationship with that company was strong enough that they said absolutely. And some really good insights for both sides came out of that conversation. So don't be afraid to ask your medical society for help. And finally, if you're doing abstract researches, so you go to the companies, you go to the medical society meeting, and you're searching abstracts for abstracts that are related to your particular disease state. Please don't search the titles only. Please make sure you're doing entire searches. Jack from the Lymphangiomatosis and Gorham's Disease Alliance will tell you a story of how he missed the one person at our conference who was doing disease research in his specific area because he did a title search and the name of his rare lung disease was in the body of the abstract, not in the title. So just a couple of things to think about as you engage with your medical societies. If you're going to be asking for funding, you have to be very careful about what you ask for. Research in companies that have a product either launched or in development have budget depending on what phase of the life cycle that they're in, but you have to understand if the product's launched, what the product is approved for. If you're asking for support for a PAH program, pulmonary artery hypertension, and you ask a company that has COPD products to support your program, that's an unapproved indication, and it's the biggest risk that industry can face, is supporting something that could be perceived as promoting outside of the indications that are approved by the Food and Drug Administration. So please be sure you understand who you're asking and what you're asking them for. This is a quote from another one of my grant colleagues. Make sure that the company you're asking for help or support has a product that is either in development or indicated. If they don't, you're really wasting your time because even though they may be good people, they are restricted because of controlling risk. Make sure that they're not venturing out of the space that they're allowed to work in. You got to do your homework and make sure you put your request in the right place. So for the very same ATS program, one request is an educational grant. Company 2 says invoice me. And the third company says it has to go into the corporate support system, which is something you have to be pre-approved to apply for. That's something to be very conscious of and why you don't want to be too specific in your emails to companies. I routinely, with new companies, send an email to my main contact saying, I would like to talk to somebody about a program that does this. Can you direct me to the right person so I don't venture out of compliance? And that's a perfect email to send to a company because they can forward that to the right person and connect you with who you need to without breaking any rules. If you're working with companies or more than one company that are collaborating on a project, make sure you understand who's responsible for what and suggest really that all of your meetings be together. Otherwise, you have one hand talking to the other and they don't know what is really going on with your organization. You need to know how they provide funding to patient groups. Sometimes it's the medical teams. Sometimes you have to go through a grant system. And you have to know the language that each company uses. All of the front matter on those grant portals is really important, and it's there for a reason. So please make sure that you read it carefully. Once you have a grant, you have to understand that the letter of agreement, or LOA, is a legal contract. There are some things here that you need to do to be good stewards of the contribution to your organization or event. These are pretty basic, but again, be careful of anything in your documents that imply risk or increased use of prescriptions or favored positioning. Those are all big no-nos, and again, coming back to risk. and this is a third quote, depending on what they're working on, there's 3 places in our company patients could go to for funding. So start with public relations or patient advocacy and let them help guide you. And the last quote, bottom line is we're a small company. We don't have the financial resources of big pharma. Some companies will be able to give you checks with a comma in them, tens of thousands of dollars or more. Some companies just don't have that kind of budget. But if you can start conversations with them and grow that relationship, the number that they have set aside for you can grow over time. One last thing to think about, and as a word of caution, over the past couple of years, there have been federal investigations of pharma and biotech companies and the relationship with patient groups. The OIG is the Office of Inspector General, that's the federal government, and the Internal Revenue Service are investigating specialty pharmacies and patient groups who get grants from industry to help pay for expensive drugs. It is against the law to supplement prescription drugs that are covered by Medicare and Medicaid. And charities like you guys don't necessarily face those restrictions. So if you're approached by a company, big companies know better than this, but if you're approached by a small company and they want to do something like this, really make sure that you've outlined in writing what they're going to do and what the support is for. And I would really encourage you to have all contracts reviewed by a lawyer. These are some of the headlines. At the beginning, I talked about the Wall Street Journal test. None of these are the Wall Street Journal, but Reuters and USA Today is about as big as you can get. These are things that as patient organizations, you really do have to be careful of your interactions with industry. The people that work in industry get up every morning to try to find cures for diseases like the ones you treat. Sometimes companies don't do the right thing, but generally the people that you work with do and are very good-natured. But this is something just to be aware of. So just a couple of closing thoughts. This has been a really great opportunity. I hope it's a little bit of an introduction on how to work with industry. I've listed my email address here if you have questions about any of these things that we don't get to in the Q&A period or more. Or you have other questions, or you need a contact at a specific medical society or company. If I know them, I'm happy to introduce you to somebody. But with that, I really am so grateful for the opportunity to talk with you. Thank you for all of your good work, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. I actually learned so much from your presentation. The transparency report was not something that I was aware of. So thank you so much for sharing that info with us.
Sure.
So in terms of Q&A, I am looking here to see what we might have. I'm not seeing any questions at this point, but Michelle, I was wondering if you could give us some ideas about, I noticed you had a slide about grant follow-up.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think is the best way to be acknowledging those grants. I know that's something I've been working through the last few years and trying to grow and is my grant follow-up. So talk about that for a moment, if you would.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Let's say that the grant is for, so I'm most helpful to you. Do you want to talk about a grant in support of your organization or a membership or an educational grant?
Let's talk about an educational grant.
Okay, great. An educational grant. For follow-up, if the program is for patients, there aren't a lot of rules around patient education. If the education is for doctors, there's a lot of rules around that. So if the program is for doctors and it's accredited by the American Council of Continuing Medical Education or any of the other accrediting bodies, there are very specific rules called the ACCME, American Council of Continuing Medical Education, Standards for Commercial Support, or SCS. So if you search for ACCME space SCS, that'll give you the standards for commercial support. They are very clearly outlining, what is appropriate for attribution. Unfortunately, in continuing medical education, logo attribution is no longer allowed. It has to be just a text attribution. Learning acknowledgement of grant support does have to be in any promotional materials. It should be in any meeting materials. It should be on any enduring materials. We call that in the education side, we call it front matter, especially for a webinar. You notice that my disclosures were there when I started to give my talk. You have to disclose that the information you're talking about has been supported by an educational grant from Michelle Pharma, and that's required. As far as reconciliation, we typically send a letter of thanks to the grant team for supporting our educational programming. We tell them that the learning objectives remained unchanged, so there was no scope change. So the proposal that we put in is exactly what we delivered. We tell them how many people were there and any demographic information that we have about them, how many were MDs, how many were patient advocates, how many were researchers. We give them a reconciled budget. If we have pictures of the event, we send those. If we have enduring materials from it, like a syllabus, we include a copy of that. And if there's any evaluation data, that's also really important. And that's called outcomes. And there's a whole talk we could do on educational outcomes, but essentially level 1 outcomes is participation, how many people were there. Level 2 outcomes is, were they happy with the program? Was it fair balanced? And level 3, 4, and 5 is where you start to talk about different levels of learning. Again, rather complicated, but those are all things that we send in our reconciliations.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yep. I see 8 comments in the Q&A. Hang on a second. Blah, blah, blah. See if any of these are. Hi from Italy. Hello from Wales. Hi from US. Nope, no questions that I can see. Again, if there are, or any of the things that I've talked about go by a little bit, then, please feel free to email me. The email address is on the last slide. And I'd be happy to either connect you with someone who can answer the question or make introductions to somebody who might be helpful for you.
Awesome. I noticed one of the comments was that they are hoping to meet you at the summit. Will you be at the Global Genes Summit, Michelle? Or maybe that was for someone else.
I will be. I was not aware of it. I did take a picture of the slide so that I can see if my travel schedule will allow. There may be somebody else from the ATS team going. Courtney White, whom I mentioned earlier, is our Director of Patient Engagement, and he's absolutely tremendous. He may be going, and I just don't know, but I will have to follow up on that one. I'm sorry.
Wonderful.
I do something about the patient, not keen on patient journey. We choose patient adventure. I love that comment. Sometimes it's not a happy adventure, but it's sometimes not even a pleasant journey. So patient challenges, patient barriers. There's so many challenges to getting patients appropriate diagnoses, and especially for some of the rare diseases that you guys work in, I can imagine that must be particularly challenging.
Yeah, we in our organization, we definitely have a love-hate relationship with that terminology, patient journey. I think adventure is good. I do like that, actually. So wonderful. Anyone else with a question for Michelle? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. We really appreciate your time. I think your insights were so valuable to everyone on this call, and I know I certainly learned a few things that I will be following up on. So to wrap up our call today, our next meeting, as I mentioned earlier, will be in person right after the Global Genes Patient Advocacy Summit. That will be Saturday, September 21st. Again, more information will be coming out about that meeting, and I hope to see you all there. And then our fourth quarter call will be December 11th. It's hard to believe that we're already planning towards the end of the year, but we will be looking forward to speaking with you all then and getting some insights from you on how you enjoyed the summit. And thank you all so much for joining us. If you have any questions, please reach out to Lauda at Global Genes. Again, any member of the Global Genes Foundation Alliance Advisory Council, we're here. We'd love to speak with you as well. So thank you all and have a nice afternoon.
Thank you so much, everyone. We hope to see you in San Diego in September.